All right, so this week we are discussing the menstrual cycle and programming around your menstrual cycle. I will go into a little bit on your actual menstrual cycle and what that entails, and how you can potentially use that to aid your programming. This doesn't work for everybody, so it's worth remembering that the best way to figure out what's going to work for you is to track your cycle using an app or your fitness tracker, for example, and record it throughout. So not just the time that you have your period, but actually the whole cycle, how you feel, how much energy you have, how your moods are, how your flow is during your period, any ache, cramps, either before or during your period, and just seeing if changing anything around your program might actually help you in the long run. I'll talk about what the science says in terms of strength training, because that's what this is going to mainly focus on. But yeah, you're going to have to think about it in relation to you, because we're all different. All right. So just before we begin, a little bit on the current science. The research in this area is still quite limited. It's a new research area. A lot of research has been done in the past about the loss of the period, so amenorrhea, because due to over-exercising or overtraining, or perhaps diet, in terms of athletes. Additionally, the number of participants has been relatively small in many of the studies. The participants have also typically been professional athletes, which may not provide enough information for the wider population, or provide context to the wider population. So it's worth thinking about that when you're taking into consideration this research. Despite that, the research does suggest that a phased approach to your fitness programming may actually help you in terms of training for some aspects of your training protocols. So, or at least in some women or some females. If you're on contraception, however, a hormonal contraception, this may not be useful because your hormonal fluctuation may not be the same. So you may find that you're quite level throughout your period, and therefore throughout your menstrual cycle, and therefore this will not be as relevant. This also goes for those who have conditions that affect the ovaries, such as PCOS or endometriosis, which may affect your hormonal rises and falls as well. And even for people with other conditions such as PMDD, or just generally throughout, for different women, your menstrual cycle will affect you differently. And despite what it says around how some hormones can benefit you in your training as opposed to others, it doesn't mean you're going to feel like doing that thing on that day. So it's take into account your own cycle as we go through this. Okay. So now let's take it back to school and we'll learn a bit of biology. So to learn a little bit more about your own menstrual cycle, it's worth noting that your cycle happens in 4 phases. You have your early follicular phase, which is starts with your menstrual cycle, so the first day of your bleed. This is where your body is shedding the uterine lining, and it typically lasts between 3 to 8 days, and on average about 5 days. Conditions such as PCOS and being on normal hormonal contraception are some of the reasons that a period might not occur in a typical way, but there's many reasons. Phase 2 of the cycle is the late follicular phase. During the late follicular phase, you'll find your estrogen rises. Towards the end of the phase, you also find that luteinizing hormone also rises. It's the estrogen that we're interested in here because that is the one that provides you additional energy. So this is quite a good part of your cycle. You're normally feeling quite good. I know myself, my skin looks clearer. I feel quite good about myself. And then we come into ovulation around day 13, towards the very end of the cycle. And this lasts for about 16 to 36 hours. And it ends the follicular phase of the cycle. It's worth noting also in this section of your menstrual cycle and not shown on the graph, but that testosterone also rises, and that can lead to things like additional extroversion. So during the early luteal phase, what you'll find is that your estrogen levels slightly drop, but they're still quite high, and your progesterone levels start to rise. The progesterone itself is actually coming from, and some of the estrogen is coming from the follicle that's released the egg, which is known as the corpus luteum. Once that the progesterone is basically released in order to thicken the uterine lining in preparation for pregnancy, if the egg was indeed fertilized. So next to remember during this phase is that actually your temperature goes up by at least about 0.4 degrees Celsius, and it will stay that way until you reach menstruation. Because of this, your energy levels will likely drop, and your ability to lift heavy will go along with that. Okay, we're going to keep that one in mind. So during your late luteal phase, which is phase 4, the final phase of your menstrual cycle, you tend to find, assuming you haven't got pregnant, that both your progesterone and estrogen levels drop dramatically, and return to menstruation level. So they are heading out that way as the uterus is preparing to excrete the lining that it doesn't need because you're not pregnant. And during this phase, this is where you are typically going to have your low mood, irritability, etc., because that hormone level drop. So during this phase, you can be quite tired. You may even experience premenstrual cramping and other things that come along with it. So this is the be kind phase, as I like to call it. So for you, what does that mean in terms of training? So particularly in terms of strength training, if you are someone who does have a regular 28-day cycle, you've tracked it, you've checked it, you know that that's what's happening, then these protocols may work for you. It's worth trying them out to see if you see any progress. Record how you're feeling after each lift, see how you feel a couple of days after, see if your muscle recovery is doing all right. So if you were to do it this way, you would prioritize your strength training in phase 1. So in phase 2, you are looking to prioritize strength training still and your heaviest lifts. So this is the time that you're going to have the most energy throughout your cycle due to the increase in estrogen, but it is also the time where you are at greatest risk of injury due to that increase in estrogen. Whereas estrogen makes your muscles and bones strong, it actually has the effect of loosening of ligaments and tendons. So it is at this time you really must also ensure that your warm-ups are suitable and effective, making sure that you make mobility for the lifts that you're doing a priority. So for phase 3, we're looking to drop the weight back a little bit. You may find that you really struggle to get close to the heavy lifts that you've done in the previous week. You are probably going to want to drop your percentage RM down, even to achieve the same number of reps that you did in the previous week. It might be worth in phase 3 and phase 4 to actually drop back and work on your technique a bit, but this may be something you have to play around with. So figure out what's best for you and what's going to help you reach your goals. But dropping back a little bit will only benefit you in the long run because you'll work on your technique, you'll improve that, and it'll get you moving closer towards your goals. Also, again, you've still got that high estrogen in this phase, so just be careful with your warm-ups and making sure that even though you're dropping back the weight, you still have to do the mobility to make sure that you're ready for the lift. And for our final phase, phase 4, you want to continue with the percentage of RM probably from the week before, You're probably going to feel not your best this week. This is the week of, if you particularly suffer from PMS, this is the week that you're really going to feel it. So prioritize rest days. In fact, if you're going to take a holiday or something and you're really concerned as an athlete or something about your training schedule, try to put your holidays in this week if you want to, and prioritize the rest days in these 2 weeks. You should still rest the rest of the time as well. You shouldn't be working out 7 days a week. Your body does need recovery time, but prioritize the rest more in these weeks. And just be kind to yourself, because actually it does make a massive difference to how you feel throughout your cycle. Even if it doesn't show up in your lifts as it does for some people, then it is worth, making sure that you are doing the right activity for you mentally as well that week. There is evidence that lifting can actually help lessen the severity of some of the symptoms of things like PMS and your menstrual cycle, menstruation itself. So strength training is really good for you the whole time. I'm not telling you to stop exercising during phase 3 and 4, but maybe strength training isn't what you need those weeks. Maybe you want to go for long walks. Maybe you need to be outside. Figure out what's going to work for you. So in conclusion, as I said at the beginning, it's worth remembering that this isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. You're all different, we're all different, and our menstrual cycle hits us in different ways. Our hormones hit us in different ways. Some people may be able to push through and get through it. Other people may really struggle due to the types of cramping they get, the types of mood, whether they have a mood disorder, etc., that may also affect them during this time. So it's worth considering that. Additionally, within your actual menstruation, your flow may be really, really heavy, and your bleed may be really, really heavy, and you might feel self-conscious or something. Hopefully there's lots of work being done around that and trying to destigmatize that in the first place, but it doesn't help how you feel right in the moment. So just consider what works best for you and your body. Everybody's different. The best way, as I said, to figure out what the best training protocols are for you are to track what you're doing. Just track how you feel, track how you recover, track how heavy you can go, track the decrease in the ability to lift heavy as well. So if you find that 1 week you're lifting, say 70 kilos on a deadlift, and the next week you can only lift 50, that's a significant change. So just write that down. And is that a consistent change throughout? So is the next month, do you have a similar response? So it's not just a track one time and that's all. Try to track it over a few months. Try to figure out how you are. Things will change as you age as well. As you enter into menopause, your cycle will change. So the hormones will change. Everything changes. It's great being a lady. And also remember, if you have a condition such as PCOS or endometriosis, this may not work for you. It may. Just see how you go. If you're on hormonal contraceptive, that kind of balances the level of your hormones across your menstrual cycle. You may not also find any use in trying to plan this way. It may be that you just have quite a steady go throughout your menstruation. So menstrual cycle. So in conclusion, figure out your own body. No, if you have any questions at all, we are going to be doing lots more on this and trying to learn about your own body as we work through our 12-week program in February. So if you want to get involved, feel free to sign up. There's a discount for early bird sign up on the website. And yeah, you're going to learn lots more about this and even more into the science on what works in different types of training and what might work in different types of training, I should say, because I don't think any of it's in concrete yet. All right. Thank you.